Pretty confident mood this morning.
As an inclusive party, we seek to build an inclusive Britain, one from which people are included and not excluded, one where opportunity is spread, not contracted, where choice is widened, not narrowed, where the choices are for the individuals, not the governments or the councils, where people can achieve their hopes, their ambitions, their dreams by their own endeavour, their own actions, and their own luck. If the work can be finished, we can then truly say Britain is the best place in the world to live.
The strategy is very clear and very straightforward. It is to demonstrate to people the nature of the choice we face in the run-up to this election and the choice that will be faced on polling day. This government has delivered an economic success, has delivered improving public services and rising living standards. All of that is at risk if we go for a Labour Party which, despite the labelling, still represents the strain of ideas that delivered economic failure in Britain in the 1970s.
And with me is Dame Angela Rumbold, the Vice Chairman of the Conservative Party. Now, a very spirited performance by the Prime Minister, and of course party leaders have to be spirited at this time, but what's it really like out on the streets? And nobody knows that better than you.
Well, it's interesting that you should ask that, Vincent, because I do go out on the streets. As you know, I have a marginal seat in South London. And one of the things that I can say without any doubt at all is how popular the Prime Minister is. If you ask people about him, they almost always say, good chap, very solid, very sound, and someone that we trust.
Shame about the party.
Well, no, they didn't say shame about the party, as it happens, but you could, you know, you can laugh now.
Not quite the same.
But it's, the interesting thing is also that the party fortunes are beginning to pick up on the streets.
In which case, I mean, when's your favourite date for an election? As a campaigner, never mind Prime Minister's just going to decide this, would you play it as long as you could?
I certainly would, yes. I mean, every day counts in the constituency because it means you talk to more people and you can rebut some of the nonsenses that are being put about by the opposition parties.
But what about the destabilising nature of the uncertainty, the long period, the endless campaigning? You know, is it not harming the electoral process and therefore harming you?
Well, no, I don't think it is, because I think actually most people don't think about politics at all until a politician turns up on their doorstep. And then fleetingly they suddenly start thinking, oh yes, well, we'll talk to them about this, and then maybe a bit later on they might come back to you. But the average person is actually thinking about their daily lives, or the football or the cricket or whatever it is that concerns them. So I think they might get a bit fed up with television, but I don't think they actually get too fed up with politics.
What about the uncertainty over Europe? Now, you know, you must be well fed up with Theresa Gorman's constant threats to reintroduce this referendum bill, and there's a threat of doing it on Monday. And Central Office, you will know this, are getting quite a bit flirty with her.
Well, I think at this stage in any parliamentary life, it's the most sensible thing that parties who want to win, and let me make it very clear indeed, the Conservative Party wants to win very badly. The most sensible thing that we can do, wherever we stand, whether we're members of Parliament or just ordinary members of the party, is to be totally and utterly united. That helps a lot. And I think that it would be very helpful if all of our colleagues could reflect on that particular point before they start taking up issues which might be difficult.
There's rumours that the Conservative Party were actually threatening her to put a candidate up against her if she persisted with this. I mean, how would you cuff her around the ear in your ladylike fashion, Angela?
Well, I certainly would say, now come on, you know, don't you think this could wait? I mean, you may feel very strongly about this, but how about leaving it until later on in the summer when we're back comfortably in government again?
Would you cuff her around the ear?
Oh, I wouldn't dream of cuffing any of my colleagues round here. Come on.
Now, the other thing, too, is, you know this as well as round the nooks and crannies of Westminster, the only thing they talk about behind the Prime Minister's back is the leadership contest. I mean, somebody came up to me yesterday and alleged that he was a campaign manager for one of the people concerned. I mean, what do you do about this? This is going on all the time, and you know what's going on as well.
I mean, people gossip and chat, but actually I think that our Prime Minister is an exceedingly good campaigner, a very good leader, and the number of people who are very supportive of him, particularly if you're in at Prime Minister's Question Time, is very interesting. It's perfectly possible that people talk behind their hands occasionally, but much less now than some time ago.
But the difficulty is, if you have a very long campaign, and you know there's the devil will make work for idle tongues, and if it goes on and on and on, then the uncertainty will mean that the leadership fever will continue.
No, not at all. The longer the campaign, the more important it is for colleagues to get into their constituencies and fight on the issues, and the issues are very clear. There's a very good economy which has been set by this present government's efforts. The issue on Europe is very clear. The Prime Minister knows precisely what he wants and how he's going to take a very strong line in Europe, and does it on behalf of the nation. Absolutely right. Michael Howard is doing splendidly on crime and law and order. All of these things are very clear issues which can take up all of our time very happily on the streets.
But of course, as soon as he does well in crime, the press, the Conservative press and others say, well, he's the next leader, isn't he now?
Well, I mean, most of the Conservative press actually are saying he's rather a good Home Secretary, which is actually what I think Michael Howard is doing extremely well.
But shouldn't you be calling an election before Neil Hamilton causes you more humiliation by being dragged up in front of the Standards and Privilege Select Committee for a televised trial?
I don't think that's an issue for calling an election. I really do. I don't think that. I think whatever the Parliament decides and whatever the committee decides, that's a matter for them. But it isn't a matter for the electorate. And the electorate is not particularly interested in that any longer.
But who does it help more? Let's assume that there is a protracted campaign, 5, 6 weeks, and people are bored and fed up and apathetic and annoyed at being asked to campaign for so long. Who does that hurt most?
I don't think it necessarily hurts people, because I think it helps people to concentrate their minds. What I think is very interesting about all these conversations that one has is the truth of the matter is that on polling day, people make up their minds and they go and cast their vote for the next government. It's going to affect them very much indeed. But it will affect them if they throw everything away that they have gained over the last 6 years by voting for one of the other parties. So vote Conservative is what I say to people.
It's been suggested to me, and you'll know whether this will work or not, it's been suggested to me that if you bore the pants of the electorate for long enough, that you can make Labour voters more apathetic than Conservative
Well,
ones.
I'm delighted to hear it if that's the case, and I will go for a very, very long campaign.
Do you support the idea? Do you think that makes sense?
I don't think it actually makes sense, no. I think it's a talking point, really, for people sitting in armchairs, but it doesn't actually happen on the doorsteps and in the houses.
Keep your ear to the ground and keep me informed, Angela. Thank you very much.
But could the opposition parties force an earlier election than John Major wants? I'm joined from Edinburgh by the Liberal Democrats' Chief Whip, Archy Kirkwood. Archy Kirkwood, now that the Conservatives are officially in a minority, when are you and Labour going to get your acts together and terminate the life of this government?
Oh, well, how about 3 weeks next Tuesday at 7:30?
Well, it might appeal to many of your MPs and supporters.
I think it's very difficult to try and predict just exactly when it's going to happen. And it might mean that some of our members may have to hide in cupboards and lavatories and bars out the way late at night, and so that they can turn out in unexpected numbers at unexpected times.
It might indeed involve that. Is that what you're plotting with?
Well, indeed. I mean, I think that this is pretty serious territory. We've already got the government on the run. We had 2 minor tactical successes last week. We won an extra day's business when the government pulled stumps last Monday in the English Crime and Punishment Bill, and they were pulling people in on Tuesday for the second reading of the Finance Bill to an extent that they didn't need to.
Well, let me pick you up on the Finance Bill there. You say you're doing well, but they had a majority of, what, 35 on the Finance Bill. It didn't look like you were in much prospect of pulling them down there, does it?
That's a very naive way of looking at things, if I may say so.
Well, it's the headline way of looking at it.
It's that's a more accurate way of putting it. You're quite right. But the Tories are soon going to get fed up being dragged in unnecessarily. These guys, mostly, and the guys and gals on the Tory side, are desperate to be in their constituencies to try and make good and repair the damage of 17 years of Tory rule. And they don't want to be stuck in their offices or crying into their warm beer in the bars in Westminster late at night, all night, just because there might be an ambush sprung on them. So it does actually have a very real input in terms of increasing the pressure on government backbench members, and I think that that's worth doing.
Right, but you say they might get fed up that you're increasing pressure. I mean, it might actually kill some of them. Joe Ashton, who was a Labour whip during the dying days of the last Labour administration when it went into a minority, he reckoned that 6 Labour MPs were killed by these sort of shenanigans during that. Don't you think the public will find this a rather macabre prospect? Tory MPs, perhaps MPs on the opposition side as well, dragged into the House of Commons in ambulances to vote. Isn't there a more civilised way of doing it?
Well, there is indeed. And although the arrangements for pairing have been withdrawn, if I, as a Liberal Democrat whip, and I'm sure this would apply actually to Donald Dewar, although the pairing arrangements have been withdrawn, if Alison Goodlad had a legitimate case where there was a a life-threatening situation, of course we would want to listen to that.
Right.
There are limits to which these parliamentary procedures and tactics can be taken.
Right. Key to this, of course, is whether you can get the Ulster Unionists to vote alongside you.
Absolutely.
How are you talking to them?
Well, I mean, I think somebody should tap David Trimble on the shoulder and ask him what his game is. Certainly now...
Well, you sit right next to him in the House of Commons. You could tap him on the shoulder.
Well, indeed. And I think that the focus will now swing very heavily in their direction. We can muster 314. We can count on that, and we could do it on Monday if we had to. He's got 9 players, and the government have got 322. So if he comes on board with us on Monday in a vote of confidence, if it could be contrived that quickly, then we would win by 1. And we have now to start asking the Ulster Unionists, why is it that they are deliberately, knowingly sustaining the Conservative government against, I think, the national interest? They may have concessions that they're trying to get behind the scenes on the finance bill or other matters, and maybe there should be a bit of transparency about that if that is what they are doing. But certainly, people should be in no doubt that the 9 Ulster Unionist members of Parliament are sustaining this Conservative administration.
Okay, but what about all your MPs? Can you guarantee to me that all of them would vote against the Conservatives in a confidence vote? Because in Sunday newspaper tomorrow, you've got David Alton, for instance, attacking your leader, saying you're slumping in the polls. End of equidistance has been a complete disaster for you. You sure every one of your bodies will be in the right lobby on the night?
Well, I read Sunday newspapers unusually last Sunday and saw you reported as saying that some of our members would be in doubt in terms of a
perhaps they might.
Motion.
Those who are threatened by Labour.
I don't know where you get. I mean, I've never known you be wrong before, Andrew, but I certainly don't know where you get that piece of information. That I've got 26 players, and they will all be in the no lobby against the government when the time comes.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us from Edinburgh, Archy Kirkwood.
Well, having devoured David Willits, on Monday the Commons Committee on Standards will turn its attention to another up-and-coming Tory minister. Like Mr Willits, Andrew Mitchell was a junior whip at the time when the Commons Members' Interest Committee began its investigation into Neil Hamilton. Mr Willits, you'll remember, was reprimanded for trying to influence the Members' Interest Committee inquiry by chatting to the committee chairman. Mr Mitchell had an even better opportunity to influence the committee. Just before the Hamilton inquiry began, he was drafted onto it as a member, the only time that a whip has been given such a role. What the Standards Committee will be trying to find out now is whether Mr Mitchell used his position as a whip to intimidate his fellow Tories into going slow on the Hamilton inquiry, as Labour members have alleged. It's a very hard charge to prove. Mr Mitchell would doubtless proclaim his innocence and say that he acted solely as an MP, not a whip. But one Tory member of that original committee doesn't recall it that way. Preferring not to be named, this Tory has told A Week in Politics that there was widespread concern that Mr Mitchell was behaving as a whip at the time. Mitchell was obviously reporting back. He would rush out of the room, consult and rush back. So at least one Tory MP is inclined to agree that an orchestrated campaign seemed to be underway. The whips got what they wanted. The Hamilton inquiry was unresolved. These allegations can be substantiated at next Monday's committee hearing, then Mr Mitchell could be in very hot water indeed. More heat after this short break.
Call party time now on 0891 29 29 29. That's party time on 0891 29 29 29. Call now.
Matron, I'm not eating this. I've got an ingrowing toenail, not ingrowing taste buds. Matron!
Mother, I have to keep to a budget.
So do I, but I can do better than this.
Calm down and eat up. See you later.
Mr Taylor! Fancy a stroll? Right, good afternoon. Straight on. Stop! That won't break the bank. Onward! Look at the price of those. Oh, sorry, you can't, can you?
At Tesco, our unbeatable value guarantee means just that. Hundreds of quality products guaranteed to be at unbeatable prices.
Back toward 10. Tally-ho.
Oh, that's pretty. It's for my mother. She's in hospital. Oh, I'm sorry. No, this place for her.
Onward.
No.
Unbeatable value at Tesco. Well, every little helps.
Underneath, it's a Volvo.
Welcome back. Who scares wins. That seems to be how the politicians are approaching the election. The Tories have plastered 3,000 billboards with posters claiming that a Labour government would end in tears. This week, Labour retaliated by raising fears about a fifth-term Tory government. It would, they claimed, slap VAT on food.
Will the Minister confirm that the Chancellor has told the House that one of his options must be to extend the VAT base? That he said the main candidates are food, children's clothes, transport, sewerage and newspapers. And he told us a powerful case can be made for each of them.
My right honourable and learned friend has never made a secret of the fact that he favours a broad-based taxation system with low marginal rates. That's possibly, Madam Speaker, something the opposition don't understand. But today they have totally made up and fabricated a claim that on this side of the House we have some intention to levy a VAT on food. So let's nail that absolutely right now.
But Labour was not letting this one go.
The Chancellor said this morning that it had never crossed his mind, his exact words. Could he explain, therefore, why on the 30th of November 1993, in the budget statement, Hansard column 940, the Chancellor described the serious options and the powerful case to extend VAT to food, children's clothing, transport, sewerage and newspapers?
I think the honourable member's question is marvellous. I never thought that I'd stand here at this dispatch box and listen and listen and listen and listen and listen to a Labour front bencher putting forward such a heartfelt plea against tax rises. It shows that 17 years of Tory rule have not been in vain.
I've heard of negative campaigning. This is negative fantasy campaigning. I mean, is that it, or is it going to get worse?
No, I suspect, Vincent, it's going to get worse, perhaps much, much worse in the 12 weeks or so that are left to a last possible polling day. Both sides are going to accentuate the negative. Both are going to suggest there's some sort of nightmare on Downing Street if the other gets elected. And the judgment they're having to make, of course, is whether people will believe these nightmares. Labour would argue that since they can show the Conservatives fibbed on tax before, people will believe this VAT on food. Tories say, in fact, they can do much better nightmares against Labour because since there hasn't been a Labour government for 18 years, they can make up whatever they like about what Labour would do.
Yes, but I mean, assuming these things matter, and I am sceptical about it, I mean, who's winning the battle of the negative fantasy campaign?
Well, in search for a relatively objective view, I talked this week, for instance, to a Liberal Democrat strategist, and he tended to agree with the Tories. He thought their campaign was rather better. We are, of course, starting from a very low base, but their campaign was rather better than the Labour one, which he judged to be rather flat-footed. And the Tories would say, you see, people are bored with figures being thrown about, like how much the Tories might put up tax again. What they want to do is go for the emotional. They say our campaign's deliberately not rational. Edifying it may not be, but that's how they're going to play the election.
If only they avoided marks for grace and artistry as well as actual votes, who knows who would win the campaign? As 11th hour U-turns go, this one was a beaut. Last November, the Labour Party fully backed the government's police bill, which enables the police to enter, search and bug premises without the prior consent of a judge.
We strongly support the proposals of the government for statutory control of what is regrettably necessary to combat serious crime, telephone tapping and bugging, in other words, intrusive surveillance. We very much regret that it is necessary, but we recognise that it's a fact of life.
No, it isn't. After fierce criticism from lawyers and judges that the bill was a gross infringement of civil liberties, the Shadow Home Secretary, Jack Straw, has backed down. He has tabled fresh amendments to the bill. When asked about this sudden change of heart, Jack Straw said, "I am continually thinking about these things," and why should we doubt his word? Perhaps he'll now turn his thought processes towards other less liberal policies he has recently embraced. We now await U-turns on curfews for kids, squeegee merchants and police crackdowns on noisy neighbours. Perhaps he'd also like to rethink becoming Home Secretary. "There are three kinds of fools," said racing pundit John Oaksey. Fools, damn fools, and jockeys who remount in a steeplechase. I mean, I mention this because the only constant topic of conversation down Westminster just now is the race for the Tory leadership. "He's the red rum of the field," said one wag to me about a colleague, by which he meant an elderly gelding who jumps about a lot. Well, let's go now to Andrew in the parade ring as he casts an eye over the field.
Place your bets now, please, for the great Tory leadership handicap, if you fancy a flutter on Michael Heseltine as the man most likely to lead them in opposition. Then William Hill are offering odds of 9-2. Hesse may be a rather ageing thoroughbred, but he's a stayer. Here he is, making fun of the fact that Labour had sent John Prescott to China.
The right honourable gentleman was courteous enough to ring me to explain he couldn't be in the House this afternoon. I'm not exactly sure why, but it occurs to me after what his right honourable friend, the leader of the Labour Party, had to say on Sunday, he may have gone looking for a job.
Well, you should know all about that, Michael. The going is hard in this race, which suits joint favourite Michael Howard.
Honourable gentleman now answered a very simple and specific question that I put to him.
You see, he's already practising to be leader of the opposition, putting questions rather than answering them. At 7-1, there's Ken Clarke, demonstrating that he's no slouch at bashing the other side.
We have a clear position on negotiating in the context of the International Intergovernmental Conference. We produced a white paper. We've set out a clear negotiating position. I haven't the first idea what the opposition's view of any of that is. They have not produced any such document, and it's one of the many, many areas where it's not possible to get any straight answers out of the opposition of precisely what their answer is.
Ken could be a winner if he didn't carry so much weight. He needs to shed at least £10, or should that be €10? A 12-1 shot is Malcolm Rifkind, trying to come up on the rails by nuzzling up to Tory backbenchers. Whatever the question, the answer is yes.
I do agree with my right honourable friend. Yes, I very much agree with my honourable friend. I agree this is a crucial matter. Could I first congratulate my honourable friend on his recent knighthood that was awarded to him. Could I say to my honourable friend that I do very strongly agree with him.
If you like to punt on long shots, how about an outsize outsider? On Nicholas Soames becoming the next Tory leader, you can get odds of 100-1. His party want to scratch him because he's overbred, according to Labour's John Reid.
Can I say how deeply all of us on this side of the House regret the press reports that the Minister will not be able to defend his record during the general election campaign on these issues because Tory Central Office has banned him from television since he's too much of a toff.
There's only one thing for it. Nick Soames will have to cross the floor and join the Labour Party, where public school boys can still attain the highest of offices. Party leaders like to look clever, and when they can't manage that, they try to look industrious. One of their little conceits is that somehow they've managed personally to write everything in their manifesto. John Major, stung with perhaps jibes about his abilities in the 1992 campaign, said this.
It's all me. Every last word of it is me. This set out in here is the sort of Britain I'm going to see and lead this country to in the next few years.
Well, if he does do it himself this time around, Mr. Major is going to have to burn the midnight oil. He reminds me of a serial bridegroom on the eve of his 5th wedding, trying to think of something new to say. Well, as usual, he'll have to promise something old, something new, something borrowed, and of course, clear blue. The oldest Tory promise to love, honour and privatise is sure to appear. The Tube, the Post Office, even Channel 4 are contenders. Another old idea worth whispering in a bride's ear is a return to grammar schools. There may well be a pledge to put one in every town. One new or newish wedding promise could be the introduction of motorway tolls. Now, an idea borrowed from the opposition will bolster the social agenda. A promise for real terms increases in health spending. That should appeal to the wetter guests at the wedding. Finally, some clear blue policies will have to be found to appeal to traditionalists at the wedding breakfast. He could promise to abolish inheritance and capital gains tax. And over Europe, he will refuse to extend majority voting. But what's he going to say about the really important European issue, the single currency? Well, this is a bit like making a wedding speech with a pregnant bride. The least said, the better. We'll be back after this pregnant pause.
You've just had a bounty. Bounty. Taste the exotic.
The Emerald Isle, the 40 Shades of Green, the land of milk and bacon.
You know, I got to be someplace in 2 hours. You think you'd have it poured by then?
Leprechauns, trout fishing, the Eurovision Song Contest, the Nolan sisters.
Bitter. He's not even conscious.
A land of authentic Irish beers like Holston O'Pills.
Hand-pulled. More like leg-pulled.
A cool, clean-tasting brew made from Kilkenny hops, Kerry barley, yeast from Killarney, and cool, clean Kildare water. Holston O'Pills, the true taste of Ireland.
And cut. Import beat camera.
Can I get down now?
Yeah, good.
I don't think we can hold it for much longer, sir.
Being single has never been so much fun. Lines are open 24 hours, so call the Singles Network on 0891 808 808.
Welcome back. Next week, Gordon Brown will start to fill in some of the details of Labour's tax plans. The Shadow Chancellor is expected to say that none of his party's spending proposals will require an increase in income tax, not even for the very wealthiest. But there are many ways to skin the rich or touch the pockets of the averagely well-off. If raising money from income tax is forbidden, that would still leave a Labour government with other options for raising substantial revenue. James Mallett now reports.
Labour is revealing little to the voters about how it's going to pay for its policies if it wins the election. But the money's got to come from somewhere to fund services like health and education, even at present levels.
Any Treasury official at a senior level will tell you privately that the Exchequer is in need of revenue, even to maintain sensible funding of existing public expenditure plans. And as they are unrealistically tight and based on more or less impossible assumptions, it's a sure bet that whoever wins will raise taxation.
If we want to go on with a public sector like the one we've had in the past, we need more tax, and it will be progressively more and more tax with every year that goes by. And that increased tax can't just be imposed on a very small number of people at the top of the income distribution. If we want a universal public sector, then everybody is going to have to pay more tax.
After the negative impact of their so-called tax bombshell in the '92 election, Labour will rule out any increase in income tax this time round. We know that they plan to raise money from the windfall tax on the privatised utilities, but who else will Gordon Brown hit in his first budget?
Well, I don't think Labour can afford to have a tax bombshell. I'm not sure they could have afforded to last time, or even if they wanted to. So maybe they're going to have sniper's bullets. They say, we've got a clear target. Bang.
Pensions managers fear that they could be in line for the firing squad. A quarter of all employees now benefit from the tax advantages which personal pensions bring.
There are a range of things that could be done to the tax treatment of pensions. One would be simply to rule out a tax-free lump sum. That might raise £500 million in the medium term, so a rather small amount of money. There have also been suggestions that it would be possible to restrict the rate of tax relief on pension contributions to the basic rate or even the lower rate of income tax. That might raise much more money, could raise even as much as £1 billion, but it would be a potentially rather dangerous thing to do to the pensions market.
The pension fund industry is very well aware of its own lobbying clout. You know, £500 billion in the economy is a lot to argue with, and there are people representing that stake who are able to argue their case very forcefully. So they're not going to be pushed around by any government that comes in. So if there is change, I think it will be incremental. I don't think that a Labour government in its early months would want a big punch-up with the city just at a time when it wants to, if anything, show the steady hand.
Despite the problems, further taxes on pensions seem likely. The city's worried that Labour will hit them in other ways too. This week, Legal & General launched its so-called election PEP, encouraging investors to buy PEPs now in case Labour changes the system. And with a fifth of us now owning shares, they could also raise £1 billion or two by increasing stamp duty on share buying, and could reduce the £4 billion worth of tax credits allowed on dividends paid out to investors.
Chancellor Norman Lamont reduced the amount of credit available, and that precedent makes us feel that it's a significant risk going forward that an incoming government, on the basis that it's been done once already, why not take it a little further, might actually cut that credit still further. If that were to happen, the stock market could take quite a knock, because I don't think this is generally discounted, but it could raise the government some revenue.
The city might seem like an easy target for Labour to hit with higher taxes, a popular victim among ordinary voters. But company taxes tend to impact on you and me too.
I think there's a general fallacy, which is that somehow companies can pay taxes. In the end, the only thing that can pay a tax is a person. The sorts of people that can pay taxes are either shareholders or consumers or employees. And by and large, if you increase taxes on companies, you would generally expect that it was much more likely that employees and consumers would suffer than that shareholders would suffer. After all, there's a free market in capital, and if you try to reduce the rate of return earned by shareholders, then they will move elsewhere.
It's individuals then who'd have to cough up for these extra taxes. At least if Labour closes the loopholes in inheritance tax, as they may well do, it's very rich individuals who will suffer, those who manage to avoid paying it at the moment.
It's not the big estates of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 million and more that pay inheritance tax, because all the assets are held abroad in blind trust. It's actually the less rich people who actually pay the bulk of inheritance tax. And I'm sure Labour will want to get at that, and there are quite complex technical provisions that could be changed which would greatly increase inheritance tax yields. And the same is true, of course, of capital gains tax.
Capital gains tax could well be raised and loopholes closed by a Labour government. But for now, the city can only guess at Labour's intentions. All that's certain is that no government ever became popular by increasing taxes.
You know, the trick of a finance minister is to find a way of plucking the goose, plucking the feathers from the goose, in a way that the goose doesn't squeal, and keeping the goose as much as you can intact. And I think the range of options that are available on companies, on pensions, on inheritance tax, on capital gains tax, on VAT reliefs, are just like that. They are ways of plucking the goose.
Listen out for squealing noises if Labour gets in. At least there's one tax they can't bring in after this week's campaign: VAT on food.
James Mallett reporting. John Major has been carrying on up the Khabra and hoping to carry off some of the Asian vote back in Britain. His trip to India, Pakistan and Bangladesh was, at least in part, designed to help the Conservatives win a number of inner-city marginal seats. There are 1.5 million Asians in Britain. Their electoral significance comes from the fact that their votes are highly concentrated in marginal constituencies. Labour is the overwhelming beneficiary of the Asian vote and has been for the past 30 years, but its hold is slipping from an estimated 86% in 1979 to 76% at the last election. Some Asians have warmed to the Liberal Democrats. At the last election, a group of Asian businessmen helped pay for Paddy Ashdown's campaign jet. Tories hope to mobilise this vote. At least 3 Conservative MPs won in 1992 thanks to their Asian support. The riddle for the Conservatives is why more middle-class Asians don't vote for them. Tories believe that their emphasis on family values and individual enterprise should appeal to the Asian constituency. And today, the Prime Minister took that message to Tory-supporting Asians meeting at the Commonwealth Institute. To the delight of his audience, John Major quoted approvingly the words of his Conservative hero, Ian MacLeod.
I believe quite simply in the brotherhood of man. Men of all races, of all colours, of all creeds. I think it is this that must be in the centre of our thinking.
The Prime Minister placed immigration in the context of a proud tradition.
Sir John Houblon, the son of a Huguenot immigrant, was the first governor of the Bank of England. George Frederick Handel, the composer, was a German immigrant. Michael Marks, a Jewish immigrant, started a stall that grew to become Marks and Spencer. Isambard Kingdon Brunel, a man who sums up British engineering success in the last century, was the son of a French immigrant. And that is to name but a few.
I think Conservative Party is a party of the people, a party for good values, a party for everybody.
He might not have as much as charisma like Mr. Thatcher, but he's a good man, gentleman, and I like him. He's a very honest man.
Well, I think that, John Major actually done very well and far better than the Labour Party in encouraging the ethnic minority to join the British politics and to contribute our effort for the prosperity of this country.
And I'm joined in the studio by Labour MP Piara Khabra and Conservative MP Nirj Deva. Nirj Deva, why have the Conservatives done so badly in the past at attracting the Asian vote? And will one speech and one trip from the Prime Minister really make any difference?
Not at all, Andrew. I mean, they have not done so badly in the past in the sense of the last few general elections. More and more Asians are voting for the Conservative Party in droves.
And if that's true, why do you think it's the case?
It is the case because a lot of the people who've come here have come here because they want to succeed. And they're naturally upwardly mobile. They're achievers. They're entrepreneurial, they believe in family and etc., but all you said. But the key thing is that there's a gene pool of people who, by making this great journey across thousands of miles, have reflected an ambition to improve themselves.
And you think that makes them natural Tories?
Well, the Conservative Party is the party of self-improvement. It is not and never has been the Labour Party.
All right, let's throw that over to Piara Khabra.
Well, I think it's a joke actually to claim that more and more Asians are slipping into the Conservative fold. That's not true, actually. If you look at the history of politics in this country, the ethnic minority communities from the Asian countries, particularly the Indian subcontinent, started coming in the period between 1950 to 1960, majority of them. Since then, they have always supported the Labour Party.
Okay, if that's true though, isn't there a danger that you're beginning to, or some of your party colleagues, are taking that vote rather for granted? I mean, John Major is clearly making an effort. What are the Labour front bench doing to make sure they've secured that vote?
Well, as you know, that the Labour Party policies compared with the Conservative Party policies during the last 20 years have been far better than what the Conservatives have offered to the Asian community. And their record on race relations is awful.
Well, let's put that over to Nirj Deva. I mean, you do have a lot of history to live down. I put one bit to you. I mean, there they were at that meeting celebrating Indian independence. In fact, the Conservatives, many Conservatives at the time, opposed Indian independence, didn't they? And you must add to that, obviously, things like Margaret Thatcher's remarks about swamping, Enoch Powell in the 60s. It's a lot of history to live down,
Enoch
isn't it?
Powell got sacked. Everybody starts talking about Enoch Powell, but doesn't say he got sacked. He got sacked from the Conservative Party.
All right, more recently, Norman Tebbit offered his cricket test of nationality, didn't he?
The point I'm making here, Andrew, is very important. Today, you heard a very brave, almost revolutionary speech by a serving Prime Minister saying he believes in an inclusive society, a society where everyone belongs, like he reflected in his own background, the opportunities that the Conservative Party offers people. And what he said today, I believe in an inclusive society, the brotherhood of man. And he made a very important point, including about the fundamentalist side. And he said, Islam is a religion of peace.
Right. So what do you think he was disavowing, that Tory history of making remarks of a racist content?
Well, he talked about colour, he talked about discrimination. He wants to eradicate that. He wants Britain to be the best place in the world to live in. These are the reflections of a very sincere and true party.
But was it in effect a bit of an apology? I mean,
no, it is not. You see, the Conservative Party, and that's why I joined the Conservative Party, is inclusive. It is not a divisive party. It doesn't break people up into black and white, women and men, age and young, old and this and that, working class, non-working class. It is a party for everybody.
Piara, Khabra, do you think Asian voters are going to buy that?
I don't think so, because it's very difficult to for the Asians to accept the kind of ideas, the kind of promises the Conservative Party is giving the Asian community. Let me talk about the business community, first of all. During the last nearly 18 years, the Conservatives followed policies which have actually destroyed small business, and during the period of boom and bust, quite a few Asian businessmen had high hopes that perhaps there is an opportunity for them to progress in business. But what happened is, when the economy busted, who suffered the most? It was the Asian business which suffered the most. Lots of young people, those who started their own business, their properties were confiscated, they became bankrupt, their cars were taken away, and they are completely frustrated.
Right. Okay, if all that's true, why is it that the Conservatives will actually field more Asian candidates than the Labour Party will at the next election?
I don't think that they have put Conservative candidates in safe constituencies.
Well,
it's tokenism, and it won't work.
It's tokenism.
It is not. The fact is that the Conservative Party is the party of one nation. It is the genuine party of one nation. The Labour Party may want to steal those clothes, but they're not going to do it. The fact is, also, there are thousands and thousands of people who I know who are Conservatives, they're Asian, family values, business, low taxes, enterprise.
But you know that they're always in a tight election. There are some party colleagues of yours who are always tempted to play the race card. For instance, I'm going to quote you Andrew Rawnsley, who's Director of Conservative Research Department. He said, immigration, an issue which we raised successfully in 1992, played well in the tabloids and has more potential to hurt. By meaning hurt, he means hurt the Labour Party. There's always that temptation.
Now, that is the most ridiculous example, especially today, to put out in the media. Andrew Rawnsley is absolute no one.
He's a parliamentary candidate,
actually. You've just heard the British Prime Minister, the Prime Minister of the Conservative government, saying what he said at the Commonwealth Institute today, saying, I want an inclusive society, I want a tolerant, civilized country. That is the message.
Right, Piara, Khabra, it's all going to be inclusive, one nation with the Conservatives.
I think it is not one nation conclusive or inclusive, call it inclusive society, because the policies which the Conservative Party is following is divisive. It is based on social divisions. It does not give the hope to the people, those who need help and support.
But perhaps we take Labour a bit more seriously on this, or Asian voters were, if Labour could actually provide more Asian MPs. We have an all-women shortlist now to promote women into Parliament. Why not the same for Asian candidates?
I'm not supporting what I call it, the positive discrimination principle, because I think that if you become a member of a political party, you got to go through the system. The Labour Party is more democratic than the Conservative as far as selection is concerned.
All right, there we have to end this discussion. Thank you both, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you.
And that's it for This Week in Politics, in which John Major had a chance to look at the way some people cope with job loss. Maybe there's a role model for him.
Singer Brian Harvey of East 17. Not much of a parallel there. The Prime Minister's trouble is that he won't mention the E word.
Chris Evans isn't quite right either. John Major might like Fridays off, but I don't see him singing Please Release Me, Let Me Go.
What John Major would really like to know is the secret of Kenny Dalglish, a man who walks out of the top job twice, and they keep asking him back.
But there's one clear, obvious role model for John Major. Yes, Nicola Horlick, Superwoman herself. You can see the scene after the election. John Major storming about Westminster, demanding his job back.
And when that doesn't work, he could do the same as Nicola, fly to Germany and confront his boss. Reinstate me, helmet, or get me compensation. From Vincent and me and all of us here a very good evening.